Good morning, periods 1, 3, and 4. Again, we're going to take some notes today. We're adding to our inequality information. Today, we are going to add some special cases in of some things that can happen. Not very often, but it can happen, and you need to know what to do. And we're also going to do a couple of inequality practice problems. And again, you will be submitting these in Canvas to me as your assignment today. All right, here we go. Okay, this is our first problem that we're going to do, and you're going to find out it's our first special case. So go ahead and write this problem down on your notes, and we're going to work it together. I don't want you to work it by itself. I want you to work it with me. All right, so the first thing we would do, we have no distributive property. We have no fractions. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to combine our like terms on this side, just like you would do with any inequality or any equation. Same rules apply. So I get 4x minus 3 is less than or equal to 4x plus 2. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to move the variables to one side. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. And what happens is, if you notice, both of the x's cancel out. So the x's are all gone. There's no x's. Now we need to write down what we have left though. We have negative 3 is less than or equal to 2. Now, in equations, if our two numbers were not equal, it was no solutions. That's not how inequalities work. What we have to do now in inequalities, once we get this answer, we have to decide if it's a true or false statement. So ask yourself, is negative 3 less than or equal to 2? Well, yeah, of course, it is less than 2. Doesn't have to be less than or equal and equal to, because no number can be that. It just has to satisfy one condition. So yes, negative 3 is less than or equal to 2. So since the answer is yes, the answer to this problem is all real numbers. Now, the question is going to come up when you have to graph these on your homework. Well, how do we graph it? Well, technically, the answer would be you just shade the entire line, but I think that looks kind of sloppy. So what I want you guys to do on your number line, when you guys get to your homework, when this happens, just on the number line, just write all real numbers. Okay, and again, it was all real numbers because we got a true statement. If we get a false statement, you'll see in the next one what we do then. Okay, so there's special case number 1, all real numbers. Okay, so here's problem number 2, so go ahead and write it down. And again, we're going to work this one out together so that you can see how it becomes a special case problem. All right, so step 1, we don't have any fractions, but we do have distributive properties on both sides, so we need to do that first. So when I take 2 times x minus 2, I get 2x minus 4 plus 5x is greater than. On the right-hand side, you need to remember there's an imaginary 1 outside this parentheses, so we're actually distributing a negative 1. So I don't touch the 9x. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 12 is plus 12. Okay, so the next step in equations would be the same thing in inequalities. We need to look on both sides and see if there's anything that we can combine that's alike. So if I have 2x and 5x on the left side, that gives me 7x minus 4 is greater than. And then on the right-hand side, I have 9x minus 2x, which is 7x plus 12. All right, so here's where we're at. We've combined like terms. Now we are ready to move the variables to one side. So I'm going to subtract 7x from this side. I'm going to subtract 7x from this side. Always move the variables first. And then again, if you notice, the variables totally cancel out. And this time we get this. Negative 4 is greater than 12. Just like the last one, we're going to ask ourselves, is this a true statement? Is negative 4 greater than 12? Well, this time the answer is no, it's not a true statement. In the last problem, it was a true statement. In this one, it's not. So since negative 4 is not greater than 12, the answer to this problem is no solutions. That means there is no answer to this problem. And again, the question's going to come up, well, how do you graph no solutions? Well, you don't. There's nothing to graph. So when you get to your homework and you have one of these and you get a no solutions, you're just going to write where you graph, you're just going to say, nope, no solutions. You're not going to graph anything. Okay, so those are the two special cases. You have not had any problems like those two yet, but you will from time to time. Now, they don't happen very often, but they will happen on occasion, and you would have to know what to actually do here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to do about 3 or 4 practice problems. Again, of multi-step inequalities that I feel like maybe some of you are still having a little bit of trouble with. So here's what we're going to do. On the next screen, I'm going to write a problem. I'm going to ask that you pause the video, you work it out on your notes, and then come back and watch me work it through step by step, okay? And the whole point is to make sure, do you understand how to do these without my help? But I want you to watch my step-by-step guidance because, it's just like, we're not in the classroom. This is our classroom. You have to watch my videos so that you understand how to do these. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. So here's your practice number 1. I would like you to do the problem. Now, I'm not saying it's a special case or anything. I'm kind of mixing all of our inequality problems that we have had thus far. So go ahead and write this problem down and practice it, and please stop the video. When you are complete, I want you to come back and watch me work it through step by step and make sure that we match. And yes, you do need to graph this too. All right, so I am going to work this problem out. So first thing you should have done was you should have done the distributive property on the right side. So we get -9 is greater than -3 times 2x is -6x. -3 times -7 is plus 21. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to isolate the variable on the right side, get it by itself. So I'm going to subtract 21 from both sides. And I get the answer of -30 is greater than -6x. All right, so the next step you should have done was you should have divided both sides by -6. And when you divide both sides by -6, you have to remember you have to flip the sign because we divided both sides by a negative. And you get the answer of 5. Okay, but now it's a double flip problem because the variable is on the wrong side. So when you go to graph it, you're going to actually switch it and make the x on the left and the 5 on the right, but you have to flip the sign, okay? So now we're ready to graph it. All right, so I've got 5, 0, -5. I'm going to put an open circle above my 5, and I'm going to shade to the right. All right, so please make sure that you got the exact same answer as I did. And if not, even if it's a sign difference, you need to kind of rewind this or make sure you understand why I did what I did. All right, let's go on to practice 2. All right, here you go. Here's your practice number 2. Again, write the problem down, work it out by yourself, and then come back and compare your work with my work, and let's make sure we match and we know what we're doing. All right, so where I would begin is, again, with the distributive properties. So I'm going to put a 1 in front of this x right here since it doesn't have one. I'm actually going to put a 1 on the right-hand side too. So I'm going to distribute -3 to the first parentheses. So this -4, not going to do anything with it yet. -3 times -1x is plus 3x. -3 times +6 is -18 is greater than or equal to. On the right side, I'm going to leave that x alone, plus, I'm going to take 2 times 1x is 2x. 2 times -9 is -18. So there's what you should have gotten in the distributive property. All right, so now I'm ready to look at both sides and see if there's anything I can combine. So on the left side, I have -4 and -18. That's -22 plus 3x is greater than or equal to. On the right-hand side, I have these two, and this has an imaginary 1, so that's 3x minus 18. All right, so the next thing we're ready to do is we're going to move our variables to one side. So I'm going to minus 3x, and I notice that, oh wait, my variables cancel out, so I know this is a special case, but I don't know what kind of special case. So I'm going to write down what I have left. So I have -22 is greater than or equal to -18. And this is where I have to ask myself, is this a true statement or a false statement? So you should ask yourself, is negative 22 greater than or equal to negative 18? Well, no, it's not greater than, it's less than. So the answer is no. So the answer to this problem is actually no solutions. So again, when you go to on the homework to answer this, you would put this statement on the number line, and then on the graph, you would put no solutions because there's nothing to graph. All right, let's do practice number 3. Okay, here's practice number 3. Now, before you start this problem, what I'd like you to do is I want you to work all the way through the problem, but I don't want you to graph it. I want you to come back and watch me graph it because this answer comes out to be a fraction, and anytime we have a fraction answer in an inequality, we're going to graph it a little differently. So work all the way through the problem and just get to your answer, and then come back and watch me work it out, and then we'll graph it together. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and work it out. All right, so the first thing you should have done was you should have done the distributive property. When I take 2/3 times 9x, if I can't do that in my head, I'm going to write it out. 3 goes into 9 3 times, and I have 2 times 3x, that's 6x. And then I have 2/3 times negative 12. 3 goes into 12 4 times, and I have 2 times a negative 4, so that's minus 8. So check your work so far. And then I have less than on the right side. If I take negative 1/4 times 8x over 1, that gives me negative 1 times 2 is negative 2x. And then negative 1/4 times negative 12. 4 goes into 12 3 times. Negative 1 times negative 3 is plus 3. Okay, so now we're ready to move the variables to one side. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. And I get 8x minus 8 is less than 3. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And I get 8x. What do I get? 8x equals 14. Nope, not equal. Less than 14, sorry. Okay, so now what we're ready for, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to have to move over here. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go over here. So I have 8x is less than 14. I'm going to divide both sides by 8, and I get x is less than, I have to reduce, 7/4. Okay, so hopefully you got that far. So here's where we got to talk about how do you graph a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to go to a new screen just so we have enough room. All right, so the answer was x is less than 7/4. So here's how you graph this one. So we still obviously do a number line. We do 0, and I know 7/4 is positive, so I know it goes over here. I'm going to do its opposite, negative 7/4. Now here's the difference. When you have a fraction, I need to know that you know what two whole numbers 7/4 comes in between. So here's how you figure it out. If I take 7 over 4 and I ask myself, what is that as a mixed number? Well, you take 7 divided by 4, that's 1, and I have 3 remainder, and I always read it clockwise, so it's technically 1 and 3/4. Now the other thing you could do is you could actually plug that in the calculator. 7 divided by 4, and your calculator would say 1.75. Well, what two whole numbers is 1 and 3/4, or 1.75 in between? Well, it's in between 1 and 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 1 here and I'm going to put a 2 here. So you're always going to tell me what do your fractions fall in between, just so I know that you know what whole numbers it falls in between. And yes, the high school is going to have you do that too. All right, so let's finish this problem up. So we're going to have an open circle and we're going to shade to the left. All right, we're going to do one more practice problem. All right, here comes your last problem that I'm going to have you guys do for your notes. All right, so negative 9 is greater than or equal to negative 4x minus 2, all divided by negative 3. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be lots of switching of the sign in this problem. So if you want to go ahead and try it and pause the video and then come back and do it with me, or if you just want to do it with me, that's fine too, whichever one you want to do. All right, so here we go. All right, so what we're going to do first is we got to get rid of that big fraction bar. So we're going to multiply both sides by negative 3. I bet some of us forgot to do that on our weekly skills. So here's what happens. When you multiply this side by negative 3, one's on top and one's on bottom, so they're gone. So you don't really multiply the right side by negative 3. They actually cancel out. So on this side, you have negative 4x minus 2. On this side, negative 3 times negative 9 is 27. Now, here's the tricky part that most people don't catch. Did I just divide both sides by negative 3? And it's negative, so I have to flip the sign. There's flip number 1. Okay, so now it's just a normal two-step inequality. So I want to get the negative 4x by itself. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And I get 29 is less than or equal to negative 4x. Okay, didn't have to flip the sign because I didn't multiply or divide both sides by negative. All right, next step, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. Okay, notice I just divided both sides by negative, so there's flip number 2. And then 29 over negative 4, that doesn't reduce, so eventually I'm going to put it on my number line and figure out what two whole numbers it falls in between. But before I can even do that, my variable's on the wrong side, so guess what? Here's flip number 3, and I get x is less than or equal to 29 over negative 4. All right, so here we go to graph it. Again, this is the new part, so I am going to make 0. I'm going to make negative 29 over 4, and over here 29 over 4. And I didn't mention in the last problem, but you only have to tell me the whole numbers on the side with the answer. You don't have to do the other side. So 29 over 4, 29 over negative 4. Again, you could take your calculator and take 29 divided by 4. Or if I ask myself, 29 divided by 4. 4 goes into 29 7 times, and I get 28. If I subtract, I get 1. So technically, 29 over negative 4 is negative 7 and 1/4. So what's negative 7 and 1/4 fall in between? What two whole numbers? Negative 7 and negative 8. Not negative 6, negative 8. So here's negative 7, here's negative 8. And then I'm going to do a closed circle, and I'm going to shade to the left. Okay, that's all your math for today. Please make sure that you submit your notes in Canvas for your graded assignment today. All right, have a good day, and good luck tomorrow on your e-learning. I'd like to say that I will see you, but I guess I won't. Have a good day.